The alert blared through the cramped cabin of the salvage ship Horizon *. J-Ho Park rubbed his tired eyes and checked the scanner. An unidentified vessel drifted silently among the asteroids, its hull showing significant damage. Command, this is Horizon *. I've located an unknown ship in Sector 7. Moving to investigate, J-Ho reported. The static-filled response came back almost immediately. Proceed with caution, Horizon *. Record everything and do not engage if hostile. J-Ho adjusted his course, guiding the Horizon * toward the mysterious craft. His heartbeat quickened. After 3 years salvaging space debris and abandoned vessels, this was his first alien encounter. If it was alien at all, it could simply be an experimental ship from one of the outer colonies. The Horizon * drew alongside the damaged vessel. It wasn't very large, perhaps twice the size of his own ship. Its design was unlike human crafts, sleeker, with curved surfaces that reminded him of sea creatures from Earth. The hull had a strange iridescent quality despite the damage. Beginning docking procedure, J-Ho reported, though he knew Command could only respond with pre-programmed messages this far out. The isolation of deep space salvage work had appealed to him after leaving Earth, but at moments like this, he missed real-time communication. The docking clamps engaged with a shudder. J-Ho checked his suit's oxygen levels and secured his helmet. Standard procedure was to wait for Command's authorization before boarding unknown vessels, but the required delay would be over 6 hours at this distance. Something told him he didn't have that long. I'm boarding the vessel, he reported. Life-shine readings are faint but present. J-Ho moved through the airlock and stepped into the unknown ship. His magnetic boots clanked against the metal floor. The artificial gravity was off, but the ship wasn't completely dead. Dim emergency lights pulsed along what appeared to be corridors. The air was breathable according to his suit sensors, but J-Ho kept his helmet on. The interior architecture confirmed his suspicions. This was definitely not human design. The walls curved organically, with no sharp angles anywhere. The material felt almost soft under his gloved hand, more like hardened gel than metal. This is definitely not one of ours, he whispered to his recorder. Architecture unlike anything in human records. A trail of luminescent blue droplets floated in the zero gravity of a corridor. J-Ho carefully collected a sample in a container before following the trail. The droplets led him deeper into the ship, toward what he guessed was the control center. The door to the control room was partially open, damaged in whatever incident had crippled the ship. J-Ho squeezed through the gap and swept his helmet light across the area. More blue droplets hung suspended in the air, some forming small globules. That's when he saw her. A humanoid figure was strapped to what appeared to be the pilot's seat, though she had partially come loose and was slumped over. Her skin was a pale lavender color, with intricate patterns that pulsed weakly with light. The blue fluid, blood, he now realized, seeped from a wound in her side, forming droplets that drifted away in the zero gravity. J-Ho pushed off gently from the wall, floating toward her. Despite her alien appearance, there was something unmistakably feminine about her. Her face was humanoid, but with higher cheekbones and no visible ears. Her head was covered with something like hair, but it moved slightly in the weightlessness, more like thin tendrils than human hair. "Hello," J-Ho said, knowing it was pointless. "Can you understand me?" The alien remained motionless. J-Ho checked for life signs with his suit scanner. There was something there, but the readings made no sense to him. The heartbeat pattern was all wrong, too fast and erratic for a human. As he reached out to check her restraints, the alien's eyes fluttered open. J-Ho gasped and pushed back instinctively. Her eyes were entirely silver, without pupil or iris, yet somehow he could read the fear in them. "I won't hurt you," J-Ho said softly, raising his empty hands. "I'm here to help." The alien's mouth opened, releasing a series of clicks and musical tones. Her skin patterns brightened momentarily before dimming again. She was trying to communicate. Jai-Ho unstrapped her carefully from the seat. The wound in her side looked serious, a deep gash that continued to leak the blue fluid. He needed to get her to the Horizon where he at least had a basic medical kit. "I'm going to move you to my ship," he explained slowly, using hand gestures to complement his words. "To help you." He pointed to her wound and then made a bandaging motion. The alien's silver eyes followed his movements. She made another series of sounds, quieter this time, and reached a six-fingered hand toward him. Her fingers were slender, with an extra joint that made them seem unnaturally graceful. Jai-Ho carefully lifted her. She was lighter than he expected, maybe half the weight of a human her size. As he cradled her against his chest, the patterns on her skin flashed brightly for a moment before dimming again. Was that a good sign or a bad one? He had no way to know. The journey back through the damaged alien ship was slow. Jai-Ho was careful not to bump the injured alien against anything. By the time they reached the airlock, her breathing had become shallow, and the patterns on her skin were barely visible. Once inside the Horizon, Jai-Ho faced a new dilemma. His ship had artificial gravity. Would that harm her? There was no time to research alien physiology. He had to act now. He gently placed her on his bunk and activated the ship's gravity at half strength. The alien's body tensed momentarily, but her breathing didn't change. "Command, this is Horizon. Jai-Ho reported urgently. "I've recovered a survivor. Repeat, I have an injured alien life form aboard. Requesting immediate medical guidance." The response would take hours to arrive. Jai-Ho looked down at the alien woman. Her silver eyes were open again, watching him. He had no idea if their biologies were compatible. Would human medicine help her or kill her? The patterns on her skin flickered weakly. Time was running out. Jai-Ho took a deep breath and made his decision. "I'm going to help you," he promised. Somehow. As he reached for the medical kit, the alien's six-fingered hand caught his wrist. Her touch was surprisingly warm. The patterns on her skin brightened just for a moment, forming swirls around her fingers where they contacted his skin. Jai-Ho understood. Whatever happened next, they were in this together. 2 weeks into their journey to Earth, Jai-Ho entered the makeshift medical bay he'd created in his cargo hold. The alien, whom he'd started calling Madam after his childhood imaginary friend, was sitting up. Her skin glowed with a healthier lavender hue, and the wound in her side had nearly closed. "Good morning," Jai-Ho said, even though the concept of morning made little sense in space. He held up the small device he'd been working on. "I think I fixed the translator." The alien tilted her head, silver eyes reflecting the dim lights of the cargo hold. Jai-Ho placed the translator on the table between them and activated it. "How are you feeling today?" he asked clearly. The device hummed softly, processing his words. After a moment, it produced a series of musical tones and clicks, sounds similar to what the alien had been making. The alien's skin patterns brightened in what Jai-Ho had come to recognize as surprise. She responded with her own series of sounds. The translator processed them, and a feminine voice emerged. "Body, healing, pain, less." Then, unexpectedly, "I am Hana." Jai-Ho blinked in surprise. Hana. It sounded like a human name. The translator explained after processing more of her speech. Not actual name. Closest sound in human language. "Hana," Jai-Ho repeated, smiling. "I'm Jai-Ho." "Jai-Ho," she echoed, the sound strange but recognizable through her vocal organs. Her skin rippled with light patterns. "You saved me. Why?" The translator conveyed her question. Jai-Ho shrugged. It was the right thing to do. The translator conveyed his simple words, and Hana's patterns shifted to a warm golden color he hadn't seen before. "My people would say, 'Your spirit shines,'" came the translated response. Over the next few days, Jai-Ho modified the translator to work better. Hana learned quickly, helping him correct the device's errors. She could now form some human sounds, though they sounded musical and strange through her different vocal structure. 1 week later, they sat together in the small dining area of the ship. Ji-ho ate his rehydrated noodles, while Hannah consumed a nutrient paste he'd synthesized based on the chemical analysis of food packages from her ship. "You said you're a diplomat," Ji-ho said, still fascinated by her story. "Were you coming to Earth?" Hannah's skin pulsed with confirming patterns. "First contact mission. My people, the Luri, have watched humans from afar. Time had come for meeting." "But something went wrong," Ji-ho prompted. "Pirates attacked my ship," Hannah explained, her skin darkening at the memory. "They wanted Luri technology. Our energy systems. Our ships travel faster than human vessels." Ji-ho frowned. "Pirates operating that far out. They shouldn't have known about your people yet." "Someone knew," Hannah said simply. Her silver eyes looked directly at him. "My people believe connection between different beings is sacred. This is why we seek contact with humans." Ji-ho stirred his noodles thoughtfully. "On Earth, many fear differences. Not everyone will welcome you." Hannah's skin patterns shifted to a deep purple. "Fear is universal. Trust must be learned." She reached across the small table and placed her 6-fingered hand near his. "You did not fear me. I was too busy trying to save you," Ji-ho admitted with a smile. "Perhaps that is the way. Action before fear can take hold." 3 days later, a warning alarm jolted Ji-ho from sleep. He rushed to the control room, finding Hannah already there. Her silver eyes reflected the flashing red lights. "Life support malfunction," she said, her translator now worn as a small pendant. "Oxygen recyclers failing." Ji-ho checked the systems. "The filters are contaminated. We have maybe 6 hours before oxygen levels drop too low." He ran his hands through his hair in frustration. "The replacement parts are in storage, but installation is complex." "Show me," Hannah said simply. Together, they moved to the ship's maintenance shaft. Ji-ho explained the oxygen recycling system as he opened the access panels. "The problem is reaching the interconnectors," he explained. "Human hands are too large for the space." Hannah stepped forward. "My hands are smaller. Show me what to do." For the next 4 hours, they worked in tandem. Ji-ho guided Hannah through the repairs while she reached into spaces his hands couldn't fit. Her knowledge of energy systems proved invaluable, as she quickly understood the recycler's function. "The flow regulator connects to the blue circuit," Ji-ho explained, peering into the narrow shaft where Hannah worked. "Like Luri oxygen gardens," she replied. "Living systems and technology working together." As oxygen levels dropped, Ji-ho felt lightheaded. Hannah seemed less affected, her species apparently more efficient with oxygen use. "Almost done," she said, her voice steady while his breathing grew labored. When the final connection clicked into place, the system hummed back to life. Fresh oxygen began cycling through the ship again. Ji-ho took a deep breath and slid down against the wall in relief. Hannah sat beside him, her skin pattern swirling with satisfied blues and greens. They didn't speak for several minutes, just breathing together as the ship's atmosphere improved. "We make good team," Hannah said finally. Ji-ho nodded. "We do." He realized how comfortable their silence had become, how natural it felt to work alongside her despite their differences. That night, as artificial night cycle darkened the ship, Ji-ho found Hannah in the observation area, looking at the stars. Earth was still weeks away at their current speed. "Are you worried about Earth?" he asked. Hannah's skin pulsed softly. "Yes, but also hope." "I'll protect you," Ji-ho promised. "I'll make sure your diplomatic mission succeeds. And if your people fear me, then they'll learn not to," he said firmly. "Like I did." Hannah turned to face him, her silver eyes reflecting starlight. "On my world, saving a life creates a bond. Not quite family, not quite friend. Something unique." "We have similar ideas on Earth," Ji-ho said. Then we are already building bridges between worlds, Hannah replied. Her patterns formed complex swirls that seemed to reach toward him. That was my mission all along. As the ship sailed through the darkness toward Earth, Jai-Ho realized that whatever challenges awaited them, they would face them together. The universe had suddenly become much larger and much less lonely. The asterisk horizon asterisk descended through Earth's atmosphere, the hull glowing red-hot from the friction. After 2 months in deep space, Jai-Ho felt a strange mix of relief and worry as his home planet grew larger in the view screen. "We're approaching Seoul Spaceport," he told Hannah, who stood beside him in the cockpit. "Are you ready?" Hannah's silver eyes reflected Earth's blue oceans and white clouds. Her skin pattern showed swirls of both excitement and nervousness. "I have prepared for first contact my whole life," she said through her translator. "But meeting one human is different from meeting a planet." Jai-Ho smiled. "Just stay close to me. I'll handle the officials." As the ship touched down on the landing pad, Jai-Ho could already see the welcoming committee, if you could call it that. A line of armed guards stood at attention beside several people in black suits and white hazmat gear. "That's not normal for a returning salvage ship," Jai-Ho muttered. "Someone must have intercepted my transmissions about you." Hannah straightened her posture, her skin glowing with formal patterns that Jai-Ho had learned indicated her diplomatic status among the Luri. "I represent my people with honor," she said simply. The ship's ramp lowered with a mechanical whine. Jai-Ho went first, stepping out into Earth's gravity and sunlight. Hannah followed, her movements graceful despite spending 2 months adapting to human gravity aboard the asterisk horizon asterisk. A man in a crisp military uniform stepped forward. The insignia marked him as Colonel Kim of Earth Defense Forces. "Park Jai-Ho," the colonel said coldly. "You have violated at least 17 space protocols by bringing an uncleared alien entity to Earth." "This is Hannah," Jai-Ho replied firmly. "She's a Luri diplomat whose ship was attacked. I saved her life." Colonel Kim's eyes narrowed. "This alien is now property of Earth Defense," he declared as armed guards moved to surround Hannah. "She's a person, not property," Jai-Ho protested, stepping between them. "And she's a diplomat." "Step aside, Park. Quarantine protocols are non-negotiable." Jai-Ho felt Hannah's 6-fingered hand on his shoulder. "It is okay, Jai-Ho," she said softly. "I will comply with Earth procedures." The guards escorted Hannah to a waiting transport vehicle. One of the suited officials handed Jai-Ho a tablet. "Sign here acknowledging surrender of the alien being," he said. Jai-Ho pushed it away. "I'm not signing anything that calls her property." He turned to Colonel Kim. "I want to see where you're taking her. I want access." "You'll be debriefed and then sent home," Colonel Kim replied. "Consider yourself lucky we're not charging you with violating Earth security." For 3 weeks, Jai-Ho fought through layers of bureaucracy. He called in favors from old military connections. He filed official requests. He even tried to reach the news networks, but the story had already broken, heavily edited to make it seem like Earth forces had rescued an alien visitor. Public opinion was divided. Some people welcomed the idea of peaceful contact with an alien civilization. Others demanded more security, afraid of what the alien might bring to Earth. Finally, Jai-Ho received a call from a government office. "Mr. Park, the alien subject has requested your presence," said the formal voice on the other end. "Her diplomatic credentials have been provisionally recognized, pending confirmation from her people. She has been granted limited movement rights, with you assigned as her official guide." Jai-Ho could hardly believe it. "When can I see her?" "Tomorrow. 900 hours. Seoul Diplomatic Quarter. Building 7. The next morning, Jai-Ho arrived an hour early. The guards at Building 7 checked his ID 3 times before letting him enter. Inside, the lobby was elegant but clearly designed for security, with multiple checkpoints and scanning devices. "Jai-Ho." He turned at the sound of Hannah's voice. She stood by the elevator, wearing a simple Earth-style dress that had been modified to accommodate her different body structure. Her lavender skin glowed with bright patterns of joy. Jai-Ho rushed forward, stopping just short of embracing her. "Are you okay? Did they hurt you?" "I am well," she assured him. "They were thorough in their examinations, but not cruel. Your Earth Council has finally acknowledged my diplomatic status. With conditions, I'm guessing," Jai-Ho said. Hana nodded. "I must stay with an Earth guide at all times. They have chosen you." "I would have volunteered anyway," Jai-Ho admitted. A government official approached them. "Mr. Park, you understand the rules. The alien must remain with you at all times. No unauthorized communications, no visits to sensitive locations. Daily check-ins required." "Her name is Hana," Jai-Ho corrected. "And yes, I understand." Their first public outing was to a small park near Jai-Ho's apartment. He thought it would be quiet, but someone must have leaked their location. By noon, a crowd had gathered beyond the park fence. "Is it true she can read minds?" a woman called out. "Go back to space," shouted an angry man. "Welcome to Earth," cried some children, waving handmade signs. Hana observed it all with remarkable calm, though Jai-Ho noticed her skin patterns had dimmed to almost nothing. Something she did when feeling threatened. "Perhaps we should try somewhere else," Jai-Ho suggested. "The shopping district has security." The shopping area was indeed more controlled, but still chaotic. People stared openly, some taking pictures with their devices. Store owners couldn't decide whether to welcome them or ask them to leave. "Why do they fear me?" Hana asked as they hurried through the busy district, her skin patterns muted to avoid drawing more attention. "Humans often fear what they don't understand," Jai-Ho explained, unconsciously taking her hand to guide her through the crowd. Her skin brightened at his touch, patterns dancing in a way he'd never seen before. Jai-Ho looked down at their joined hands, her 6 fingers intertwined with his 5, and felt something shift inside him. He quickly let go, embarrassed. "I'm sorry," he said. "I didn't mean to." "It is okay," Hana interrupted, her patterns still dancing. Touch is how Luri share emotions too. That evening, they returned to Jai-Ho's apartment. The government had decided it was safer than creating a separate facility for Hana. His small home had been quickly modified with monitoring devices. For her protection, they claimed. Jai-Ho prepared a simple dinner while Hana stood on his balcony, watching the city lights come on as dusk fell. "Your world is beautiful," she said when he joined her. "So many lights, so many people." "And what do you think of those people after today?" Jai-Ho asked. Hana's patterns shifted thoughtfully. "They are like people everywhere. Some kind, some afraid, all curious." Jai-Ho leaned against the railing, watching how the city lights reflected in her silver eyes. After 2 months in space together and 3 weeks fighting to see her again, he couldn't imagine his life without her presence. With a sudden clarity that took his breath away, Jai-Ho realized his protective feelings had evolved into something more profound and impossible. How could he feel this way about someone from another world? What would she think if she knew? "Your patterns are changing," Hana said softly, looking at him. "Your human skin does not show colors, but your face speaks as clearly as Luri patterns." Jai-Ho turned away, embarrassed. "It's nothing. Just tired from our big day." Hana's 6-fingered hand gently touched his arm. "Among my people, there is no shame in connection, even unexpected ones." Jai-Ho looked back at her, his heart pounding. "On Earth, things are more complicated." "Earth is now part of a bigger universe," Hana replied, her patterns forming the beautiful dance he'd seen earlier when he took her hand. "Perhaps some complications are worth facing." As the city lights sparkled below them, Jai-Ho wondered what tomorrow would bring, and whether the distance between their worlds was as impossible to cross as he had thought. The government monitoring devices in Jai-Ho's apartment bothered him more each day. He covered the one in the living room with a jacket, claiming it fell by accident. He played loud music near the kitchen sensor. Small rebellions, but they gave him and Hannah moments of privacy. Something isn't right, Jai-ho told Hannah during one such moment, speaking softly while the shower ran in the background to mask their conversation. Your diplomatic meeting keeps getting delayed. They restrict where we can go. Someone is stalling. Hannah's skin patterns showed concern. My people will send another ship soon. They expected my signal weeks ago. We need to figure out what's happening. Jai-ho frowned. I need to talk to someone I trust. The next day, Jai-ho met his former military colleague Taiwan at a busy noodle shop in the older part of Seoul. Taiwan now worked in government intelligence. They had served together years ago, before Jai-ho left to become a salvage pilot. You look terrible, Taiwan said as they sat in a corner booth. Is babysitting an alien too much work? I need information, Jai-ho said, ignoring the joke. Why is the government really keeping Hannah isolated? Why delay official diplomatic meetings? Taiwan slurped his noodles, eyes darting around the crowded restaurant. You don't know what you've stumbled into, do you? Tell me. Taiwan leaned forward. The attack on your ship wasn't random, he explained in a low voice. Nova Corp has been hunting alien technology for years. Jai-ho stared at his friend. Nova Corp, the energy company. Energy, weapons, space technology, Taiwan corrected. They've had private ships searching the outer system for alien tech. There are rumors they found something 5 years ago. Jai-ho felt cold despite the steam rising from his bowl. That corporation has representatives on the Alien Relations Committee, he realized with growing horror. 3 of them, Taiwan confirmed, including the chairman. They attacked Hannah's ship for her technology, Jai-ho whispered. And now they're controlling her access to our government. Be careful, Jai-ho, Taiwan warned. Nova Corp has connections everywhere. Military, government, police. These people won't let anything stop their access to advanced alien tech. When Jai-ho returned home, Hannah immediately sensed his distress. Her skin patterns shifted to concerned purples and blues. What is wrong? She asked. Jai-ho told her everything he had learned. We need evidence, he finished. Something to prove Nova Corp was behind the attack on your ship. Over the next few days, they gathered what information they could. Hannah revealed that her ship's memory cores might contain sensor readings of the attacking vessels. Jai-ho contacted salvage guilds to see if anyone had been near the area where he found Hannah. Finally, they had enough to make their case. They requested a meeting with Earth's Diplomatic Security Council. To Jai-ho's surprise, they were granted an audience the very next day. This feels too easy, Jai-ho said as they rode the elevator up to the government tower. Perhaps they see reason, Hannah suggested, though her muted skin patterns showed she didn't believe it either. The council room was large and cold, with a half-circle table where 7 officials sat. Jai-ho recognized Director Kang, the head of Alien Relations. Beside him sat a sharp-faced woman in an expensive suit, Jun Seo-jin, Nova Corp's chief executive. Mr. Park, we understand you have concerns about the attack on the alien vessel. Director Kang began. Jai-ho stepped forward. We have evidence that Nova Corporation ships attacked the Lurie diplomatic vessel, and that Nova Corp officials are now deliberately delaying official first contact. He presented the data they had gathered. Hannah spoke about her ship's logs, showing human-made energy signatures during the attack. Jai-ho explained the suspicious timing of diplomatic delays. Director Kang listened without expression. When they finished, he simply said, "These accusations are serious but completely unfounded. Nova Corp is a respected partner in Earth's space program. But the evidence," Jai-ho started, "is circumstantial at best." Jun Seo-jin cut in smoothly. Nova Corp ships were nowhere near that sector. Then how do you explain? That will be all, Mr. Park, Director Kang interrupted. We appreciate your concern, but there is no case here. As they left the building, Jai-ho fought to control his anger. They didn't even consider it. They already had their answer before we walked in. That evening, Jai-ho received a message. Hana's planned meeting with Earth's government had been postponed indefinitely. Worse, she was to be moved to a more appropriate facility the next morning. They're separating us, Jai-Ho realized. Once you're isolated, they'll have complete control. They're sabotaging official first contact, Jai-Ho told Hana that night, pacing his apartment. We need to warn your people before they arrive. Hana's skin glowed with determined patterns. My ship had an emergency beacon. If activated, it would signal my people to approach with caution. Where is the beacon now? Still on my ship, I believe, or in whatever facility they took my ship's parts to. Jai-Ho thought for a moment. All salvaged alien tech would be at the Space Research Center. I still have access codes from my military days. We can get in tonight. The plan was simple but dangerous. Using Jai-Ho's old clearance and the cover of night, they would enter the Space Research Center, find Hana's ship parts, and activate the emergency beacon. If we're caught, I'll lose more than my job, Jai-Ho warned. Hana's patterns formed the now familiar swirls that appeared when she looked at him. Why risk so much for my people? Jai-Ho couldn't find the words to explain what had grown between them over the past months. Instead, he simply said, because it's right. That night, they slipped out of Jai-Ho's apartment, avoiding the monitoring devices. The Space Research Center sat on the outskirts of Seoul, a massive complex surrounded by high walls and security systems. Jai-Ho's access code still worked at a side entrance used by maintenance crews. They moved through dark corridors, hiding from occasional security patrols. My ship parts would be in a high-security area, Hana whispered, her skin dimmed to near invisibility. They found the secure storage section, and Jai-Ho used his final access code to open the door. Inside, under bright lights, sat pieces of Hana's ship. Scientists had taken it apart, piece by piece. There, Hana pointed to a small crystal-like object. The beacon. Jai-Ho kept watch while Hana rushed to the device. Her fingers moved over it in complex patterns, activating ancient systems. It works, she whispered, relief flooding her voice. The signal is sending. That's when the alarms started blaring. Someone detected the transmission. Jai-Ho shouted over the noise. We need to go. They ran back toward the exit, but turned a corner to find security forces waiting. 5 guards with stun weapons blocked their path. Stop right there, the lead guard commanded. Hands up. Jai-Ho raised his hand slowly, stepping in front of Hana. We're not resisting. This is a misunderstanding. Step away from the alien, the guard ordered, raising his weapon. Jai-Ho saw the guard's finger tighten on the trigger. The weapon was aimed at Hana. Without hesitation, Jai-Ho threw himself forward. The stun blast meant for Hana hit him squarely in the chest. Burning pain spread through his body as he collapsed to the floor. As consciousness faded, he saw Hana kneeling beside him, her skin blazing with patterns he'd never seen before, brilliant golds and deep crimsons flowing together. Even without understanding the specific meaning, Jai-Ho recognized what those colors expressed. The same feelings he'd been unable to put into words, the connection that had grown between worlds, between species. The last thing he heard before darkness took him was Hana's voice, no longer using the translator, speaking in her native tongue. A musical, beautiful sound that somehow he understood perfectly. I will protect you now, she was saying, as you have protected me. Jai-Ho woke up in a hospital bed. His chest still hurt from the stun blast. He blinked at the bright lights, trying to remember what had happened. Then it hit him. Hana. The research center. The beacon. You're finally awake, said a familiar voice. Tai-1 sat in a chair beside the bed, looking tired but relieved. Where's Hana? Jai-Ho asked, trying to sit up. His body protested with pain. She's safe, Tai-1 assured him. A lot has happened while you were unconscious. Jai-Ho learned he had been out for 3 days. After he was stunned, Hana had surrendered peacefully to avoid further violence. But the beacon had worked. The Luri delegation had received her warning and arrived in Earth's orbit just hours later. Their ship was massive, nearly 2 kilometers long. It simply appeared above Earth without warning, its technology far beyond human capabilities. The sudden arrival of an alien mothership had thrown governments into panic. Novacorp tried to hide their involvement, Taiwan explained, but I had been gathering evidence against them for months. Your actions gave me the final pieces I needed. With Taiwan's help, the truth came out. Novacorp's illegal operations, the attack on Hannah's ship, the sabotage of diplomatic relations, it all became public. The corporation's leaders were arrested, including Jun Seojin. The Luri could have attacked us after what happened to Hannah, Taiwan said. Instead, they asked for her safe return and a proper diplomatic meeting. 1 week later, Jae-ho stood in Seoul's Grand Plaza, watching as final preparations were made for the official reception of the Luri delegation. His new formal uniform felt stiff and uncomfortable. As one of the few humans who had extensive contact with a Luri, he had been invited to attend the historic event. The crowd fell silent as the Luri representatives teleported directly into the plaza, a technology that made Earth scientists gasp. 7 tall, lavender-skinned figures appeared, their bodies glowing with formal diplomatic patterns. Jae-ho searched among them for Hannah, but couldn't see her. His heart sank. Perhaps she had remained on their ship, or worse, been assigned to another role now that official diplomats had arrived. The lead Luri stepped forward to address the gathered Earth officials. Unlike Hannah, this Luri wore elaborate garments and had deeper purple skin with more complex pattern capabilities. People of Earth, the translator conveyed the Luri ambassador's musical speech. We come in peace, despite the unfortunate beginning to our relations. The ceremony continued with speeches from both sides. Jae-ho stood quietly, trying to hide his disappointment. He hadn't seen Hannah since that night at the research center. After everything they had been through together, it seemed their paths had finally separated. After the formal statements, the crowds broke into smaller groups for direct conversations. Jae-ho stood awkwardly alone until the Luri ambassador approached him directly. Jae-ho Park, the ambassador said through a more advanced translator than the one he had built for Hannah, the one who saved our diplomatic envoy. Jae-ho bowed respectfully. I only did what was right. Our diplomatic council wishes to express gratitude, announced the Luri ambassador. Your actions have prevented conflict and created opportunity. Jae-ho nodded politely, trying to hide his disappointment at Hannah's absence. I'm glad I could help. How is Hannah? The ambassador's patterns shifted in what might have been amusement. She is well. She has told us much about you and your world. I'm happy to hear that, Jae-ho said, though his heart felt heavy. We also request your service as Earth's representative to Luri, the ambassador continued, the human who understands us best. Jae-ho stared in surprise. Me? But I'm just a salvage pilot. You are the human who looked beyond differences to see a person in need. You risk everything to protect both our worlds from those who would begin our relationship with violence. There is no better qualification for a diplomat. Before Jae-ho could respond, a familiar figure appeared beside the ambassador. Hannah stood there, wearing formal Luri attire that enhanced rather than hid her natural patterns. Her skin swirled with a complex configuration he now recognized as joy. Hannah. Jae-ho fought the urge to rush forward and embrace her. Jae-ho, she said, speaking his name in her own voice before switching to the translator. I apologize for not coming sooner. There was much to explain to my people. The ambassador's patterns shifted again. I will leave you two to discuss the details of this diplomatic arrangement. With that, the senior Luri moved away to speak with Earth officials. You're offering me a position as Earth's representative? Jae-ho asked, still stunned by the proposal. If you accept, Hannah said, you would come to Luri, learn our ways, help build understanding between our worlds. Her patterns shifted to something more personal. The journey between worlds is long. Better not to travel alone. Jae-ho understood what she was really saying. This wasn't just about diplomacy. I would be honored, he said softly. But won't your people find it strange? A human ambassador who feels. He couldn't finish the sentence. Hana's patterns formed the beautiful dance he had come to cherish. My people believe connections between souls are sacred, no matter what bodies they inhabit. We had a long history of finding beauty in difference. 2 months later, after a flurry of preparations and diplomatic arrangements, Ji-Ho found himself aboard the Luri ship Starlight Bridge traveling toward Hana's homeworld. Earth grew smaller behind them as they passed the orbit of Mars. Ji-Ho had his own quarters on the ship, but he spent most of his time with Hana, learning Luri language and customs. The more he learned about her people, the more he admired their culture, their emphasis on connection, their balance of technology and nature, their acceptance of different forms of life. As their ship accelerated to speeds no human vessel could achieve, Ji-Ho stood with Hana at the main viewing window. Stars streaked past in beautiful lines of light. Hana's six-fingered hand found his, her skin illuminating with patterns that seemed to match the universe outside. "What does that pattern mean?" Ji-Ho asked, though he was beginning to understand the language of her light. He had been studying Luri pattern speech, just as Hana had mastered spoken Korean. Hana's silver eyes met his. "It means some connections transcend species. It means home." Ji-Ho squeezed her hand gently. "I was afraid I wouldn't see you again after you rejoined your people. I told our council about you," Hana explained, "about what grew between us during our time on Earth. They understood immediately. On Earth, many would not understand," Ji-Ho admitted. "Then we will help them learn," Hana said. "That is what diplomats do, build bridges between different worlds." As they watched the stars together, Ji-Ho realized that their story was just beginning. There would be challenges ahead, biological differences, cultural misunderstandings, prejudices to overcome. But they had already crossed the greatest distance, the space between two beings from different worlds who found something worth preserving in each other. "I never thought my salvage run would lead to this," Ji-Ho said, watching the galaxies spread before them. First contact. Interstellar diplomacy. Finding home in unexpected places, Hana added, her patterns forming the beautiful configuration that Ji-Ho now recognized as love, not so different from how humans expressed it after all. The end.